Stay with us. You're watching What Now? Let's turn attention to U.S.-Russia relations, as both countries have agreed to re-establish high-level military dialogue for the first time in more than 4 years, in another sign of warming relations between the two countries since President Trump returned to office, seeking to end the war in Ukraine. High-level military communication was suspended in late 2021 when tension between both nations rose before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. President Trump campaigned for a second term, promising that he would swiftly end the fighting. Many of his proposals for peace have heavily favored the Kremlin, including requiring Ukraine to cede territory to Russia. The U.S.-European Command said in a statement that a restored communication channel would provide a consistent military-to-military contact as both parties continue to work towards a lasting peace. Director General, Center for Advanced and Professional Studies, Professor Anthony Killer, joins me on the news on What Now for a look into this new dimension of ties between the U.S. and Russia. Good to have you join us, Prof.
Good to be here.
So this sort of looks like it marks a significant rapprochement between the world's two largest nuclear powers. Are we perhaps seeing a move towards normalization of relations between both countries?
Well, I think it's a start. We must, there's some underlying factors we need to consider. Number one is that, generally speaking, Trump is closer to Putin than Biden or other Western leaders, than Biden was and other Western leaders are. So it's surprising that they've not reestablished this before now. It's not a big surprise, but, it's a good sign. We must add the exchange of prisoners as well. That's another good sign. But this is a sign. It is not that they've resolved the issue. It is the beginning of what will happen, because this rapprochement, as you call it, has been described as cautious and constructive. It has not really resolved anything. It just tells you that people can talk, and it reminds us of the old adage that all conflicts end up with negotiation and talking.
And just recently, some NATO countries member countries have accused Russia of violating their airspace. Will this perhaps, help to reduce the flashpoints between Russia and NATO countries?
It's really a flashpoint between Russia and NATO countries, yes, because contrary to what we're saying, one of the major issues that has led to this war is actually the intention of NATO to expand eastward, to expand in a way that is against the old agreement with Russia and the interest of Russia. So in a way, it's a NATO's business. This is why NATO is very crucial in the matter. And I think this war with Trump there the next 2-3 years will definitely redefine NATO.
And what does this mean for Europe? We see how Europe has continued to have strained relations with the U.S., very terrible relations with Russia. Now it looks like there is a normalization of ties. How do you think that they view this, and what does this mean for them, especially when it comes to their relationship with the U.S.?
Well, I think, they started talking. When we say normalization of ties, let's be very careful. Nothing is normalized yet, because the key issues, the underlying issues are still there. What we have is the open of communication channel, and it is really a channel between military leaders, not government in particular. So yes, they are talking. What made them stop talking is still on the table. The thing that made them stop talking are what? Territory issue, NATO's expansion, security issue for Russia, sovereignty for Ukraine. These issues, they're still on the table. They've not been resolved. But what you have is a gesture of goodwill, the intention that we're not barbarians, we can talk, and let's see how we can talk. The normalization you're hoping for, that you're eager about, does not happen with one meeting. It's normally a gradual thing that builds up. So in a way, this is the beginning. I don't think we can shout hallelujah yet. What we can shout is, yes, there is hope.
And that gesture of goodwill, as you called it, does it perhaps make Europe uncomfortable and uneasy?
Well, I think Europe is in a place where they're realizing that they're not what they used to be. Europe hasn't got the power to say no and give impact to their no anymore. What you see there is America leading the Western Front, leading it against, now you're right, is Europe comfortable, leading it against the way Europe would have wanted it. But America has more money, has more military power, and has a president that is more direct, that does not deal with the nuances of democracy or bureaucracy of parliament, that just decides on social media what he wants to do. So to that extent, and Europe sees its limits. Europe is like a poor tenant that does not like what the landlord is doing, but cannot rebel. So Europe is caged, and it's just minding what it can do. Europe is thinking, calibrating, and see how they're going to manage it. And that takes us where we started from. That what is going on in the world, the presence of Trump, relationship with Russia, the new physiognomy of NATO, is going to change a lot of things in years, unless something dramatic happens. It must also be said that Trump has been known to change his mind. So it's very difficult to predict a linear step on what might happen. We just need to wait and see. What is clear is that Europe has been redimensioned. It is not the Europe of France and Britain and Germany of years, 30, 40 years ago anymore.
And let's talk about the expiration of the New START Treaty, which is supposed to help both countries decide how they use or the use of nuclear power, by both countries. Now that treaty has expired. President Trump said he wouldn't want to continue with the New START Treaty. He would rather negotiate a better one that works in the interest of the U.S. Now that there is a goodwill gesture, I like to stay with that, what you called it. Do you think that perhaps we can begin to see talks on that? Because right now there is some sort of fear and worry around the world that both countries are not talking about negotiating a new one.
Yes, there's a fear. They're not talking about it because they're afraid of what will happen, if they discuss it. Let's take it to a very simple micro-personal level. If you have problems with your neighbor or your spouse or your boss, sometimes you don't talk about it because you're afraid that if you talk about it, what might come out of the conversation. So they're holding back to see if they can deal with simpler things first before they go to complicated things. But one thing that the world needs to know, actually two things, that we need to focus on, we need to bear in mind in everything we do, is that for the next 2-3 years, unless something dramatic happens, with Trump on the stage, politics is going to be very personal. Trump is a very personal person. He sees things the way he feels, not based on analysis or reports. And because he's a personal person, how he feels about world presidents matters. Now, Trump likes Putin, and that is going to affect the negotiation. He sees him as strong, somebody you can deal with, somebody who can take care of things. Trump likes strong people. He hasn't got time to be a champion of the weak. He wants to deal with the strong and see what advantage is there for him. And Putin fits that bill. So they can sit down and talk, and if Putin can offer him something good, he would strike a deal.
Well, we're watching out how that plays out. Thank you so much for your time, Director General, Center for Advanced and Professional Studies, Professor Anthony Killai. Pleasure to have you on always.
Thank you for having me.